All right, let's get into this. There's been too much Baldo bunker news this week. There really doesn't it feel that way? Meme Copium's been on every day this week, and Sean and Andrew and Kurt. And by the way, I have become huge fans of those guys. I was catching up on Andrew's stream today, and somebody wrote in like, the toe is jealous of your numbers. And he was writing in last night because we were on our show seeing that Andrew was live, seeing that Legal Mindset was live. And we were like, holy shit, 2,000 people. That's great, man. And we're sitting here going, I wish, we were pulling those kind of numbers. Like even in the morning, we top out at a K, 2,000, that's bueno. Like we were really impressed. And we were telling people, hey, go watch Legal Mindset. He and Sean are on together. That's got to be a good show. Well, Legal Mindset was feeling like spilling some tea last night. Oh, my God. He was talking about the pay situation. There were a lot of people who thought that that when Nick was at his peak and you had the Rittenhouse and the Depp trials, when tens of thousands of dollars would come in one stream, that maybe people should be throwing a few bucks. Now, I'm always of the feeling of if someone asks you to come on a show and they're not offering you money straight up, ask for some. Ask for some or do your own stream if they're making a lot of money. You know who's actually really good? I want to see if the chat gets this. Do you know who does a really good job of taking care of his guests? Like, as far as I'm concerned, the best podcast host in terms of being generous with the money he makes? There's one name I'm thinking of specifically, and kudos to you if you get it. I know the Rumble chat's a little behind, so I'll wait for them a little bit. But there's one guy who is really, I don't want to say anything because when all my shit's done, I can't wait to go back on his show. Kevin Brennan is remarkably generous with his money. I mean, he will call you up, ask you to be on the show, and he'll just tell you flat out, you're going to get this percentage of the super chats. You're like, wow. You don't even have to ask. The guy just offers it to you. He's really great. He's awesome about it. But I don't know, man. I'm a little torn on these stories because on one hand, if you get asked to do a show, then it's on you to ask for money. Now, if that person tells you they're going to give you money and they don't, then I would never work with that person again. Their word means shit, and they're a lying liar who lies. So yesterday, Nate, the lawyer, confirms that there were at least 2 people that Nick said he would pay for doing the Rittenhouse and the Depp trials, and he never did. They never saw a dime. Legal Mindset also told some stories about people being told that they were going to get a gift or money or something like that, and it never came. And that kind of broke up Lawtube, and then Nick kind of himself because he tried to go his own way and be a personality. The problem is, if you've ever watched any of his streams, and I'm sorry, but he's not very funny, and he doesn't have a good kind of out there personality. He's just kind of a weirdo and a kind of a pencil neck geek in a way. He's not particularly, I mean, now he's interesting. This is the most interesting he's ever been. This is the most entertaining he's ever been, unfortunately for him. But he was such a good program director, as we'd call them in the radio business. He had this idea. I think it's his idea. I don't know. I never got into the Lawtube stuff. But he had this idea that he'd put all these lawyers on a channel. They'd all watch this trial, and they'd all give their takes and tell some jokes and everything else, and it went gangbusters. Now, we kind of have a chicken and the egg argument. Some people say, well, Nick gave them exposure. Here's what I always say to that. Bullshit on the exposure thing. Same thing in comedy. Comics will get taken advantage of, and they'll go up and do stage time, and they won't get paid because they'll go, well, they said they're paying me an exposure. You can't make a down payment on a house with exposure. You can't eat exposure. You can't drink exposure, and your lights don't stay on with exposure. So as far as the, well, they got exposure argument, they could have built channels on their own covering this shit. And also, once you go on someone's channel a few times, that exposure's done. There's only so many subscribes and likes and super chats you can get from being on someone's show. Once they do your show 3-4 times, now they're doing you a favor and giving you content. They're helping you and making it easier for you, and they're bringing a little bit of an audience over to your channel. So the exposure argument, I don't care who's making the exposure argument. I've always thought it was weaselly. I've always thought it was shitty. People are helping you out. Pay them money. Give them a few bucks if you're making some money. If you're not making dick, then don't worry about it. So that was a complaint that people had yesterday. And now that these DMs have come out, and Nick's starting to lose his mind, and now, you know, I've gotten some info that I now know, and it things are making sense. Now you have people getting a little brazen with their stories. And I'm kind of seeing this starting to go away, where this could really start to get crazy. I know it's already crazy, but it could get crazier very soon, because some of these stories I'm hearing on these shows, it seems like there's a tempest in a teapot, and it seems like that teapot is starting to screech, and that steam needs to get out. Legal Mindset told a story about Nick's interactions with his female fans. This is interesting. Cue Legal Mindset.
Scarebro, what's up, Scarebro? Says for 49. Kalia was one of Nick's only female mods. Discord bros, no. Nick poured his soul out to female fans, but dudes, I better like phoning ET than Nick. Yeah, and this was the weird thing about Nick, because I've been screenshotted a lot of conversations that female content creators send to me, and I'm like, Nick never spoke to me that way.
Oh, this is why you don't bite the hand that feeds you. This is why you don't turn around and get petulant and bitchy towards people who were good to you. Just because people are breaking down your case accurately doesn't mean they're against you. It doesn't mean they hate you. It doesn't mean they have a grudge. But when you start talking shit and you've got your nose wide open, they're going to bury you. People just, especially when you're broadcasting, because you have an audience that's gassing you up and they love this shit and they hit like and they send in the super chats and you're like, look, I have an audience to entertain. That's my responsibility. So nobody should begrudge Legal Mindset telling these stories. People want to hear them. But this sounds like something that's just teetering on the edge, and with just one more little push, we could be hearing a lot of stories from a lot of people. I mean, I've heard stories. I can't tell you about them. I'm not, the people who have told me these stories have told me not to say anything. Andrew's probably the same way. The people who have told him, tell him not to say anything. And it's not his story to tell. It's not my story to tell. But remember, for that Kalia, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, for her to come out and release those DMs, it was Nick being shitty to the Clippers, particularly Alyssa Clips, who he gave permission to clip him and then took it away and got really about it. So she decided to release DMs because she had had enough. Well, what's it going to take some of these women who have been talking to Legal Mindset for them to start releasing some DMs? And you know how these accusations from women with inappropriate contact and things like that, you know how those go. If there's one true accusation, there's going to be 4, there's going to be 5, there's going to be 6. So this is very interesting. This is one of those times where if you're the person who's who's the nail, as they say, if you're in the barrel, maybe it's time to take that barrel, tilt it sideways, and roll off into the sunset.
Bro, like, whatever you think conversation we had, we didn't have those type of conversations. He was gushing with these people, right? I have had other content creators that are female tell me he calls them at night, and these are people that are married or have boyfriends, and he will call them and be on the phone for 5 to 6, 7 hours.
I'm surprised this dude didn't get the living fucking shit beat out of him. And I'm not saying that because I don't like the guy. I'm saying, like, let's say your girl was up for 5 or 6 hours, and she was just talking to some dude, and then you look at a picture of who it is, and you go, "Oh, I'll pay this guy a visit." Like, this is not a threatening guy. I mean, that's a dangerous game to play, dude. That is a dangerous game to play. And now we have all these women who feel comfortable telling Andrew these stories. By my experience, it's only a matter of time. I mean, you look at Weinstein, Cosby, all these people who had all these accusations come out all at once. One domino, R. Kelly's another one. One domino falls, the other ones fall in real quick succession. So this is a really interesting thing to keep an eye on. But I mean, married people talking to each other for 6-7 hours at a time and all this, I don't know, man. And here's the problem. As a guy who's cheated multiple times, and I do consider, for the record, I do consider swinging cheating. Now and probably then. The thing about cheating is, if you do it once, you'll probably do it again and again and again. And I can tell you, the only thing that can stop behavior like that is getting it treated. You have to get that behavior treated so that you can learn different neural pathways and different behaviors to cope with that. You can't just raw dog cheating. Well, for more than one reason. But you can't just cold turkey cheating, because there's an impulse there. There's a problem there. So if this guy is being unfaithful like this, talking on the phone, creeping on these girls, he's not gonna stop. Like that behavior is going to continue because there's something about it they're addicted to. And I'm guessing it's being kind of a dork in high school and college and your early adulthood, not being very good with women. But then when you get money, you don't have to be good with women anymore. And so then you just can't help yourself. It's like you have nothing and then you have a lot, you're going to go overboard.
What type of married man is on the phone with another woman for
5 to 6, 7 hours?
One that desperately wants his ass kicked. I mean, Jesus Christ, dude. I mean, in a way, it's ballsy, right? Like, in a way, you're like, well, I mean, shit. You know, nobody beat the shit out of you for it? No, I mean, all right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta go. My kid needs to go to school.
Well, no, at some point, they're like, my boyfriend is having questions about this, you know?
Uh-oh.
And this is after they've been propositioned, right?
Oh, so there was propositioning going on, Andrew said. You know, you can tell that Andrew is really enjoying this because Nick's been such a piece of shit to him. Like, he said stuff about Andrew that you don't need to say. It's not about critiquing each other or criticizing each other. It's just being bitchy and snippy. And so it sounds like Andrew's got a lot of ammunition, and he's kind of relishing in he's showing the gun out of the holster, but he's not going to fire it. He's going to let somebody else fire it. If this is the kind of fire that if it builds, it can become a wildfire very quickly. Usually a story like Andrew's comes out, then somebody feels empowered and comfortable to tell their story publicly, and then everybody else feels comfortable to come out and tell their story publicly. Good boy. And the boyfriends and the husbands being like, hey, what's going on here? Again, I'm surprised. Maybe they live too far away, but I mean, that just seems like you're asking for an ass whooping. You know, one you can't defend yourself from.
Yeah.
So
Nick's like, they could join. I don't care.
Yeah.
Root for one more.
Oh, Sean's a funny man. He really is. So is Andrew. I like Andrew, too. I know that in that stream, someone was like, Steel Toe's jealous of your views. And, like, you could tell, again, he had something in the holster for me that he wanted to fire off a shot my way, and he held back. I was like, well, that's nice. But no, Andrew, that's bullshit. I was very happy that you had so many people watching you. I thought that was cool. Something I'd like to aspire to. Someday. That is, woo. That is, as the kids say, that's some hot tea. And I'm telling you, man, that Andrew, he kind of seems like he's enjoying it a little bit. And, hey, why not? Someone's talking a bunch of shit on you. And, you know that you've got the goods on them. Why not? Triple N says, so the women willingly talk to him for 5 or 6 hours. Well, Triple N, let me tell you something about some women. Some women, not all. Some women can be total whores Uh, and, and a guy can be ugly, check. A guy can just be absolutely uncharismatic, check. But the guy can have a foot of money and internet fame, check. And women will be like, I just, that's all that matters is the status and the money, the status and the money, the status and the money. And it works for some of them. I'm sure there were people he tried to talk to for 6 or 7 hours and they weren't interested because that's not the kind of thing that does it for them. But the ones where it does do it for them, 5 or 6 hours doesn't seem that bad. Those women might see it as an investment, perhaps, a branch, if you will. Or some of them might just be women who are fans of someone. Women make this mistake because a woman can talk to a guy for 5 hours and be like, I don't feel any romantic connection to him. I just like talking to him. Men don't have that gene. Men talk to a woman for 5 or 6 hours and they're like, she wants to. So women are perfectly capable of talking to a guy for 5 or 6 hours and being like, okay, we're good, not knowing that she just gave this guy the idea unintentionally that, maybe she would. Maybe she would. People are saying spill the beans. Yeah, I mean, that's up to them to spill the beans. I'm glad Andrew didn't because, it's not really your place if other and also if people DM you stuff like that and you don't keep it private, then you've lost those people's confidence and they're not going to talk to you about that stuff anymore. So I get it. I understand.